After being reborn with my best friend, Sophia, I noticed something strange. She dressed exactly like I did in my previous life, and even repeated the same words I once said all to win over my ex-husband from that life. At the engagement party, she appeared in a stunning gown, full of arrogance, declaring, "Sorry, Emily, but I want to experience this life of luxury too." Watching her smug expression, I couldn't help but laugh. Luxury? She had no idea about the treacherous waters of high society. Without real strength, she wouldn't gain riches. She'd only be torn apart, losing every shred of her dignity. I smiled and said calmly, "Don't worry, I won't fight you for this so-called fortune." Then, I woke up back in my university days. Ecstatic, I rushed to share this miraculous event with Sophia, only to be lured into the restroom where she locked me inside. "Emily, do you remember what day it is?" she asked with a smirk. "The day you meet Lucas," I replied cautiously. "Exactly. The first step to marrying into a wealthy family." The joy of rebirth began to fade as my face turned pale. "What are you doing? Let me out," I cried. Ignoring my pleas, Sophia calmly applied her makeup. Lucas loves simple, elegant outfits and quiet, obedient personalities. I remember every detail perfectly. This time, he'll definitely fall for me. Hearing her smug laughter, I sank onto the toilet seat powerless. "Sophia, you can't do this. Lucas is my husband. You can't take him away." Her laughter grew louder. She finished getting ready and stood outside the restroom door, looking triumphant. "Don't worry. Soon, he'll be my husband. And relax, once I marry into wealth, I won't forget you. I'll treat you just like you treated me in our past life." With that, she left, closing the dorm door behind her. A few seconds later, I burst into laughter, tears streaming down my face. How had I not noticed in my previous life how foolish my so-called best friend really was? She thought I had gifted her opportunities, but she had no idea that the money I lent her came from my own savings. As Lucas's obedient, manipulated wife, not a single penny of his family's fortune truly belonged to me. Sophia only ever saw the polished image I showed the world, unaware of the exhausting pretense I maintained to save face. The world of high society was dark and toxic, filled with manipulation and lies. During my 10 years of marriage to Lucas, I regretted every single day. I was trapped a puppet who couldn't even dream of divorce. Yet, Sophia believed I lived a carefree, glamorous life as a rich wife. After graduation, she never worked. She constantly borrowed money from me. I had chosen to walk into that abyss, pretending to be content while she dreamed of following in my footsteps. She even asked me to introduce her to Lucas's friends, hoping to marry into wealth like I did. I politely refused, knowing his friends were just as vile as he was. She took my refusal as jealousy and accused me of not wanting her to succeed. After a cold silence between us, she shamelessly came back to borrow money again. I gave her my last savings, 50,000 yuan, but she called it too little and lashed out. During our heated argument, we accidentally fell off a second-floor balcony together. When I opened my eyes again, I was back in my university dorm room. The hard wooden bed felt uncomfortable, yet I couldn't have been happier. I had been reborn. This was my impossible second chance to escape the abyss and Sophia's betrayal. And that fool? She was now running straight into Lucas's arms, the same man who had destroyed my life. If she was so eager to shield me from disaster, how could I not let her? When my other two roommates returned and freed me from the restroom, they thought someone had bullied me. But I just took a deep breath and smiled. Even the air in that restroom feels better than anything Lucas or his so-called high society ever offered. After stepping out, I began sorting through my memories of my previous life. I had so many choices to make and shortcuts no one else knew about. But just as I started planning, my father called, saying there was an urgent matter at home that never happened in my past life. Since home was only an hour away, I rushed back. To my shock, I found my father standing with Grace, Sophia's mother. "Grace and I are planning to get married, my father," announced. Grace had been my late mother's best friend and often brought Sophia over to play when we were young. After my mother's car accident years ago, Grace treated me like her own daughter. I was grateful to her, but seeing her and my father together filled me with unease. Sophia's father had been absent all her life, and now my father wanted to marry her mother. Then my father said something that snapped me out of my thoughts. Sophia just called me. She seems to be in some sort of trouble, and she didn't want you delaying her stay home for the next couple of days, my father said. Frowning, I asked, "Why is she calling you?" He looked annoyed. "Once Grace and I get married, Sophia will be my daughter too." What's strange about her calling me? Watching his uneasy expression, something clicked. In all those years, I had never met Sophia's father. Neighbors used to whisper that Grace was a single mother. But my father always treated Sophia with special care, often putting her needs above mine. He even tried to convince me when I was little. Grace was your mother's best friend. Raising Sophia alone isn't easy. We need to help them. Sophia doesn't have a father. You should let her have her way more often. In my past life, I followed those lessons to the letter. Even though my marriage was miserable, I still helped Sophia financially. I treated her like a real sister. But the moment she was reborn, she schemed to steal my husband. She even went so far as to call my father, asking him to keep an eye on me so I wouldn't interfere with her plans, and my father, without hesitation, sided with her. That's when I began to wonder who was really his biological child. For the next 2 days, I stayed home obediently. Quietly, I plucked a few strands of my father's hair. 2 days later, I did the same for Sophia. When the DNA test results came back, it confirmed what I already suspected: they were father and daughter. Holding the report in my hands, I couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity of it all. In my previous life, when I wanted to divorce Lucas, he used my family and friends to trap me. My father, Grace, and Sophia, those 3 people held the strings that kept me a puppet in the Lucas family. I wasted 10 years of my youth and freedom for them. Looking back now, it was all a cruel joke. But this time I'd been reborn. No one could tie me down again. I sold the house my mother left me and received a large sum of money. Without hesitation, I went to a small, hidden corner of the city. "Miss Emily, are you really planning to invest in our company?" asked a young man in a tiny, struggling studio, the future legendary CEO and entrepreneur. "Xander?" I nodded confidently. "I believe your company has great potential. You'll achieve tremendous success in the future." No one could have imagined that the future business tycoon, a man who would dominate the corporate world, was now tearing up in front of me. "Double quotes, Miss Emily, don't worry. We won't let your money go to waste," he promised. I smiled. I'm not worried. I knew this investment would bring massive returns. After signing the equity agreement, I headed to a newly developed real estate area. The sales office was almost empty, with only 2 staff members on duty. "Hello," I said. "I'd like to buy some properties." They froze for a moment, then, realizing I was serious about purchasing in such a deserted area, eagerly poured me tea and explained everything in detail. Within half an hour, I finalized the purchase of 2 units as I left. The staff walked me out with bright smiles, with some money still left in my account. I debated whether to save it as a backup or keep investing. While I was busy building my future, Sophia was busy taking care of Lucas. She even video called me just to show off. "Lucas said he'll propose to me once he recovers," she said, smiling smugly. "Emily, you've already lost your chance." She turned her camera toward the hospital bed, showing Lucas lying there with his head wrapped in bandages. "What happened to him?" I asked. "In my previous life, he never had such an injury." Sophia quickly moved the camera away. "Stop talking about your past life. He's mine now," she snapped. Later, a classmate sent a video to our group chat. Teen was from the day Lucas had his car accident. In the video, a girl in a gray linen dress stumbled toward a flipped, smoking car and dragged Lucas out, terrified it might explode. She dropped him twice during the rescue, and each time, his head hit the ground. I burst out laughing. No wonder his head was bandaged. Sophia's heroic rescue had caused secondary injuries. The group chat buzzed with comments. Was that Sophia? Why was she suddenly playing the hero? Emily, do you know what happened? Since Sophia was in the group, I pretended to be sad and replied, I have no idea. Meanwhile, Sophia was too busy taking care of Lucas to notice the messages. Turning off my phone, I took a bus to Hindian Studios. Just as I remembered, they were filming Blooming, a low-budget web drama that would later become a national hit. The director, the cast, everyone involved would eventually rise to fame. The lead actor and actress would even go on to win Best Actor and Best Actress, becoming legends of their generation. After a few days of careful thought, I decided to invest some of my money in stocks and put the rest into Blooming. It wasn't a huge amount, but it was a lifeline for the struggling crew. The young director, Michael, was grateful but hesitant. There's no guarantee this series will even air, he said nervously. It's a period drama that subtly mirrors modern society. It might fail censorship. His concern was valid. But in my past life, I had overheard at a business banquet that a powerful investor later backed the project, helping it pass every obstacle and achieve huge success. With clever marketing, Blooming became a sensation. That investors' support changed everything: the show, the cast, their futures. Michael had nothing to worry about. I'll visit the set often, I told him with a reassuring smile when I had time. I offered, if you don't mind, Michael, I'd love to share some thoughts from a viewer's perspective. His expression shifted slightly, almost too subtle to notice. As a confident and forward-thinking director, he clearly disliked outsiders interfering in his work. But maybe because I was funding the project, he reluctantly agreed. Over the next few months, even though I visited the set a few times, I never actually gave any advice. Instead, I used the money I earned from stock trading to treat the crew to meals, quickly building a friendly bond with them. Honestly, making friends with future famous actors could only benefit me. Watching those young, inexperienced actors, now knowing they'd one day become stars, filled me with quiet pride. Meanwhile, Lucas was finally discharged from the hospital. The bandages on his head weren't completely removed, but at least he could move around again. Sophia clung to his arm as they left the hospital, snapping a photo and sending it to me with a caption, Emily, Lucas is throwing me a birthday party, don't forget to come. A little later, she announced the same thing in our class group chat, inviting everyone with a tone that screamed showing off. Our classmates, unaware of everything that had happened, flooded the chat with congratulations that moment. The future Best Actress was sitting right beside me, waving a fan and teasing once we finish filming. Will we never see our sponsor sister again? She was only 2 months younger than me, yet hearing the future queen of the silver screen call me sponsor sister always made me smile. I laughed and said, probably not. Once this show airs, you'll all be mega stars and forget about your poor little sponsor. She pouted playfully. No way! Thanks to careful investments, the drama passed censorship smoothly. When it aired during the summer holidays, it exploded in popularity. Within 3 days, it topped the trending charts, and over the next month, it shattered viewership records. As one of the investors, I suddenly had more money than I could ever spend. Of course, spending it all would be impossible, but if I kept investing, I'd run out again soon. When Alexander heard about my new investment, he called in shock. Miss Emily, did you strike it rich? I smiled. Just made a little profit from some ventures. In the future, Alexander's company would rival Lucas and his entire family. In my past life, I married into a wealthy family. This time, I'd become the wealthy family myself. Time flew by, and soon it was Sophia's birthday. She shared the venue details in the group chat and tagged me specifically, clearly eager to show off. I slipped into a red leather jacket, paired it with studded boots, and hopped on my new sleek motorcycle. When I arrived at the hotel, Sophia and Lucas were just stepping out of their car. With a sharp stop, I parked horizontally in front of them. Removing my helmet, I ran my fingers through my freshly permed waves and gave a slight smile. Sophia, long time no see. Since my rebirth, she hadn't returned to the dorms. She dropped out of school completely for a man ready to bet her whole life on him. Sophia froze. staring at me in surprise. Emily, in my past life, I always dressed modestly and behaved quietly. Lucas once said he liked my simplicity, but really it just made me easier to control. After being reborn, I embraced a bolder style and realized it suited me far better. What's wrong? I smirked. A few months apart, and you don't recognize me anymore? I turned to Lucas, pretending not to know him. Is this your fiancé? Lucas, ever the gentleman, nodded slightly. Hello, I'm Lucas. He was the perfect example of a wolf in sheep's clothing. Sophia's lips tightened, her eyes wary. Lucas, go inside first. I need to talk to my best friend. Once he left, her soft smile vanished. She frowned. Don't think dressing like that will win Lucas's attention. I saved him. He promised to love me for the rest of his life. I crossed my arms and shook my head. Sophia Min's promises are lies. What makes you think someone like Lucas would stay loyal forever? Sophia gave a cold laugh. Do you think I'm stupid? After we marry, I'll give him children. Even if he strays later, I'll still be Mrs. Lucas, and my kids will inherit everything. Love or money, I'll have one of them. I almost admired her confidence. But sadly for her, her perfect dream was doomed to collapse. If things had been as perfect as she believed, she wouldn't have ended up falling off a balcony with me over a mere $50,000 in our last life. Still, I understood her naivety. Lucas's flawless charm had fooled me too. I remembered saving him from that overturned car, badly injured, helpless. As the heir to the Lucas family, he started pursuing me soon after. Saying I was his destined soulmate, he showered me with affection and gifts. Remembered every little thing I liked and made me feel cherished every day. In 2 months, I was completely in love, convinced he was my forever. It all felt like a dream until the day of our wedding. After the ceremony, I caught Lucas passionately kissing another woman in the hallway. And that woman was his mother's younger sister. That moment shattered my entire world. I was never the type to fight, but that day, I nearly lost control. When I tearfully demanded a divorce, Lucas grabbed my neck, his face twisted with rage. You think you can just walk out of the Lucas family? He hissed. You're lucky I married you at all. If you don't behave, don't blame me for going after your parents or your friends. Later, I learned the truth. Lucas only married me to appease his parents. To him, he was never a partner, just a pawn. I wasn't a person to him. I was just a puppet he could control whenever he wanted. Once, I overheard a conversation between Lucas and his aunt. He said, "You're the only one I love. I'll never have children with Emily. The future heir of the Lucas family must be ours." But the truth was worse. He had said the same thing to 3 other young women in his family. And those were just the ones I knew about. That's when I finally realized Lucas didn't love anyone but himself. To him, women were nothing more than tools, objects, to feed his twisted desires. Easily deceived and discarded when he was done, thinking about it now still makes me sick. Even the luxurious dishes on the table lost their taste. When my classmates learned that Sophia's fiancé was a wealthy heir, they were stunned. They begged her to tell the story of how she met Lucas. I quietly excused myself and went to the bathroom. While I was washing my hands, Sophia walked in, her face full of arrogance. "Emily, you saw it just now. Lucas only has eyes for me. Don't even think about doing anything to ruin our friendship." I glanced at her coolly. If I'd wanted to do something, don't you think I would have done it by now? And besides, there's no friendship left between us to ruin. She sneered. "Ha, don't pretend. I know you're dying of jealousy. Too bad Lucas is mine now. No matter how jealous you are, it won't change anything." She laughed, proud and loud. I bit back a smirk, silently waiting for the day she would see Lucas's real face. Would she still laugh then? When I returned to the private room, I suddenly heard a familiar voice. "Sponsor sister." I turned around and saw a few familiar faces peeking from the room. Next door, Michael had once invited me to a celebration dinner for the success of the drama we invested in. It was supposed to be a farewell since the whole crew might not gather again. but it happened to fall on the same night as Sophia's birthday. I declined at first because I wanted to see for myself how in love Sophia and Lucas really were. I didn't expect the two events to be held in the same hotel. Amelia, a starstruck girl from my class, screamed in excitement. When she saw the cast members from Bloom, her eyes went wide when she spotted the future best actor behind them. She looked like she might faint. Bloom, the drama we invested in, had become the biggest hit of the summer. Even classmates who didn't watch dramas knew its most famous scenes because they were everywhere online. Soon enough, Sophia's birthday turned into an accidental fan meeting for the cast of Bloom. After Amelia signed the last autograph, she grabbed my hand. "Sponsor, sister? What a coincidence. Come have a drink with us next door." I couldn't refuse, so I joined them. The next morning, I woke up in my dorm room, surrounded by my roommates. They bombarded me with questions. "Amelia called you sponsor, sister, does that mean you invested in Bloom? That's amazing. You actually know famous stars? Tell us everything." Before I could answer, Sophia scoffed. "Where did you even get the money to invest?" I rubbed my eyes, surprised to see her there. "Emily, I'm just saying, don't do anything shady just to outdo me," she sneered. I smiled faintly. "You're about to marry into a wealthy family. How could I possibly outdo you? You already managed to snag Lucas. Grabbing someone else should be easy for you, right?" Sophia shot me a sharp, provocative look. I sighed. "Sophia, I'm not you. What's that supposed to mean?" She snapped, instantly offended. I didn't bother to argue. I had more important things to deal with: an appointment with my lawyer. We were meeting to discuss my father's infidelity. Sophia and I were the same age, which meant my father had been unfaithful for at least 20 years. And yet he and Grace still shamelessly lived in the house my mother had left behind. The thought disgusted me. I needed to find a way to get them out. At the law office, my lawyer, Emma, handed me a folder filled with documents. Pointing to one, she said, "Miss Emily, did you know that shortly before your mother's death, your father took out a large life insurance policy in her name?" I shook my head. When my mother passed away, I was in my senior year of high school, busy with exams and rarely home. I had never heard anything about an insurance policy. Emma adjusted her glasses and continued. "Might sound far-fetched, but there's something suspicious about your mother's car accident." When I stepped outside the office into the sunlight, a chill ran through me. I hadn't known about the insurance policy, but thinking back, things suddenly made sense. Within 2 months of my mother's death, my father bought himself a luxury car he had been dreaming of for years. At the same time, Grace's family suddenly became well off. Sophia's wardrobe changed overnight. She started spending freely and wasn't the thrifty girl she used to be. Back then, I thought it was strange, but I didn't dig deeper. Now, all the pieces of memory fit together like a puzzle, and even the glimpse of truth made my skin crawl. What had I been protecting in my past life? A car horn suddenly blared behind me. I instinctively stepped aside, thinking I was blocking someone's way. But the car stopped right in front of me, and the window rolled down. Lucas's face appeared, smiling that same deceitful smile. "Emily, it really is you." I froze, my mind racing with unpleasant thoughts. Why was Lucas here? What was he planning this time? Even after being reborn, I could never fully let my guard down around him. Lucas leaned casually on the steering wheel, wearing his usual wolf in sheep's clothing expression. "We saw each other last night at Sophia's birthday party. You haven't forgotten, have you?" I steadied myself and replied coldly, "What do you want?" Lucas smirked. "I find you interesting. I'd like to talk. Will you give me the honor?" "Sorry, I'm busy." "No time to chat," I said flatly and turned to leave, but then he called out again. "Emily, why do I get the feeling you're afraid of me?" I stopped in my tracks. While sitting in the car later, I got a call from my father. "Emily, did you sell the house your mother left you?" I glanced at Lucas, who was driving, and replied calmly, "Yes." "Why?" "You ungrateful girl," he shouted. "That was your mother's gift, and you sold it?" "Sophia said you made a profit from investing in that web series. Transfer all the money to me immediately. Grace will handle it for you so you don't waste it again." Hearing his manipulative tone, I almost laughed. The house my mother left me was always meant to be an investment. She once told me, if you ever need money, don't hesitate to sell it. In my past life, no matter how hard things got, I never sold the house before. Then, a few years later, an earthquake hit. Thankfully, no one was hurt, but the ground cracked badly, and the area was labeled a high-risk zone. It became unlivable. No one wanted to buy it. After my rebirth, I didn't hesitate this time. I sold it quickly and invested the money in something far more profitable. Emily, are you even listening? My father's voice kept barking through the phone, still demanding money. I took a deep breath and answered calmly, Dad, this isn't wasting money. Mom came to me in a dream. She told me to sell the house before it lost value and to invest in that web series. Maybe she showed Grace too, since that's the one that's been trending everywhere. I followed her advice and made a huge profit. My father exploded. Emily, what nonsense are you talking about? Your mother loved you, and now you're using her as an excuse to waste money? Has your conscience been eaten by dogs? I couldn't help but laugh bitterly. Didn't Mom treat you well too? Yet, just a few years after she died, you moved in with her best friend. And now you dare to lecture me and ask for money? Keep dreaming, it's free in your sleep. I hung up and immediately blocked his number. Then I texted Emma, my lawyer. No matter how much it costs, I want to uncover the truth about my mother's death. If my father had anything to do with it, I won't let him go unpunished. Lucas's voice broke my thoughts. Not on good terms with your family? Still typing, I replied casually. You could say that we're like fire and water. Well then, Miss Emily, he said with a chuckle, let's get to the point. I'm in a hurry to cut ties with them too. I rolled my eyes, saying nothing. A while later, he stopped in front of a restaurant and stepped out, opening the door for me with fake gentlemanly charm. Let's talk over lunch. I followed him inside, but before I could sit down, Sophia appeared out of nowhere. She must have tracked me using the location I'd shared earlier. Lucas? What are you doing here? She said in fake surprise. Then, turning to me with a smug smile, oh, Emily's here too. What a coincidence. Yes, quite the coincidence, I said with a polite curve of my lips. Lucas's eyes flicked between us before he walked over and wrapped his arm around Sophia's waist. I ran into Emily by chance, so we decided to have lunch. You don't mind, do you, darling? Sophia blushed, playing the sweet, understanding fiancé. Emily's my best friend, why would I mind? Besides, I trust you. After that, Lucas barely spoke to me. Once lunch was over, I left early. But soon after, my phone started buzzing non-stop messages from Sophia. Why were you with Lucas? He's mine now, so don't even think about it. We're getting engaged, soon you wouldn't want people calling you a mistress, would you? Don't let me see you with him again, or I'll forget we were ever friends. Emily, answer me! It almost made me laugh. She was scared I'd steal her trash. A few weeks later, their engagement invitation arrived. I stared at it, excitement flickering in my eyes. All my patience, all the disgust I'd endured facing Lucas was finally about to pay off. At the party, I saw my father and Grace acting like a comedy duo, one pretending to be serious, the other playing the peacemaker. Disgusting. I kept my expression neutral at first, but when Grace tried to coax me, I pretended to soften. Stall them now, strike later. Sophia walked over, dressed in an expensive gown, whispering proudly, Sorry, Emily, but this time, it's my turn to live the good life. Feigning curiosity, I asked, Have you two registered your marriage yet? Before I could finish, she proudly pulled 2 marriage certificates from her purse. It was official. I let out a slow breath, smiling faintly. Don't worry. I have no interest in competing with you for that. She looked confused as I turned and walked out of the hall. Outside, I called Emma. It's time to settle every score, past and present. Not long after, at a business banquet, I saw Sophia again. She still looked elegant, but her eyes gave her a weight, tired, broken. By now, she must have seen Lucas's true nature. As for me, Spent the past few years investing wisely, using the foresight my second life had given me. Every project I touched turned into a sensation, and people scrambled to follow my lead. But I knew fame and influence didn't last forever. After graduation, I joined Alexander's company, starting from the bottom to sharpen my skills. Just like in my previous life, Alexander treated all his investors fairly. But this time, as one of the major shareholders, he seemed intent on passing down everything he'd learned. Like a mentor preparing his successor, standing among the powerful business moguls at the banquet. I handled it all with effortless composure. "President Emily, we meet again," Lucas said, approaching with Sophia clinging to his arm. His usual fake smile was perfectly in place. He mentioned a project he'd brought up before, the same one that, in my previous life, had caused him to lose a fortune. That loss had haunted him for years, frustrating him so deeply that he even lost interest in his usual flings. Back then, I was terrified of becoming the target of his anger. I had walked on eggshells every day, doing everything I could to stay invisible. But this time, I wasn't the same Emily anymore. Swirling the wine in my glass, I smiled faintly, deliberately calm. "If President Lucas is interested in this project," I said smoothly, "then it must be promising." Sophia, who had been staring blankly into space, suddenly looked up at me. I caught a faint glimmer of hope in her eyes. "Emily," she whispered. Tilting my head slightly, I asked, "What is it, Sophia?" She reached out toward me, a silent plea for help. But before her hand could touch mine, Lucas seized her wrist tightly. "Darling," he said with a forced calmness, "let's go over there." "We shouldn't bother, President Emily." He led her away, but Sophia kept glancing back at me, her expression torn between fear and desperation. By the end of the banquet, I stepped out into the garden for a breath of fresh air. The cool night breeze brushed against my face. Then, out of nowhere, Sophia came running toward me. Her eyes were red and frantic as she grabbed my shoulders. You knew all along," she cried. I calmly removed her hands, straightened my posture, and asked quietly, "So, how's that luxurious life treating you?" Her emotions exploded. She pointed at me, trembling with rage. "Emily, you heartless woman. You knew what Lucas was like, and you still let me walk into this trap. You did this on purpose? You wanted to ruin me?" I couldn't help but laugh. "That day, you locked me in the bathroom just to chase after Lucas. You threw yourself at him every day, dreaming about marrying into wealth. I even warned you once, remember? And you told me that even if there was no love, you'd still have riches and glory. So tell me, Sophia, why haven't you had any children yet? Did you change your mind?" Sophia's entire body shook. She glared at me with such hatred that for a moment I thought she might strike me. But instead, she fell to her knees with a heavy thud. "Emily, it's all my fault," she sobbed. "Please help me. I can't take it anymore." Lucas hits me. He loses his temper over everything. "Please, for the sake of our friendship, help me." Looking at her tear-streaked face, I felt nothing. I reached out, lifted her gently to her feet, and said softly, "Don't worry, Sophia. I'll help you." Her eyes lit up instantly, relieved, hopeful. But she didn't realize that the help I offered would only pull her deeper into despair. After that day, Sophia called me again and again, begging for help. I ignored her messages and instead looked through the thick folder of evidence Emma, my lawyer, had gathered over the years. Taking a deep breath, I finally felt ready. The next morning, my father and Grace were arrested. They denied everything, swearing that my mother's death had been an accident. But as the evidence was revealed piece by piece, their lies crumbled. They were charged not only with murder but also with insurance fraud. The large payout they had received after my mother's death was long gone. Desperate, they turned to Sophia for help, believing she was a wealthy socialite who could save them. Before Sophia could recover from the shock of her parents' arrest, the Lucas family, eager to avoid scandal, used their influence to fast-track her divorce. The entire process was done behind her back. She didn't even know it was finalized until she received the papers. When she arrived at my company's entrance, clutching her divorce certificate, I was already on a plane. I'd known she would come pathetic and desperate as always. That's why I'd planned my trip carefully. I didn't want her anywhere near me or my peace. 2 months later, I received an update from my team. The project Lucas had invested in had completely collapsed, massive financial losses, lawsuits, and public backlash. The Lucas family had poured everything into trying to save him. It would take them years to recover, and their influence was gone for good. Standing on a quiet beach, I gazed out at the endless horizon. The salty wind brushed against my face as the waves rolled in. I smiled faintly, grabbed my surfboard, and walked toward the water. The sun was warm, the sea was perfect weather for surfing. Finally, peace.